Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go through the books that I've read from January to March. So in January, I read Swimming Lessons, Lost and Lassoed, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. In February, I read Daydream. I also read The Wager and Cleopatra and Frankenstein in February, and then for March I've read The Fury and A Room with a View so far, and I'm also gonna go today and pick up Sunrise on the Reaping and read that one as well. And then I'll go ahead and get into what I rated them and my thoughts on them. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through the books that I have read January to March so far. So I've basically read everything I wanted to read in March as of now. The only one that I am currently in the middle of for March is Sunrise on the Reaping, and I literally just picked this up yesterday on the release date. I'm about 50 pages into it so far, and I'm really liking it. I'm really enjoying it. So when I'm done with it, I will film an update on my thoughts on it. But getting back into it, for January, I have my little reading journal here. I started off the year with A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And that's this one right here, by Betty Smith. I really enjoyed this book. I liked that it was a character study, and it kind of went through the main character, Francie, and her life growing up kind of in poverty. Well, not kind of in poverty in Brooklyn. And going through like what she went through with school and a couple of other things that happened in here, and the death of a parent, and then what happened to them after that parent died, and her parent who's still living kind of found love again, and what happened with that and how they kind of got out of being in poverty in Brooklyn. So I really liked that one. And then I read Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. I read Done and Dusted and Swift and Saddled last year. I really loved Done and Dusted. I gave that one, I think, a 4.25. Also, I gave A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, I gave that 4 stars. I gave this one a 4.25. I think I gave Done and Dusted a 4.5, and I gave Swift and Saddled a 4. I really like all of the books, regardless, but I think I like this one a little bit better than I liked Swift and Saddled. I found I cared a little bit more about Gus and Teddy than I did about Cam and Ada. Or not Cam and Ada, oh my gosh, Ada and Wes. And then I liked Luke and Emmy's story more than I liked this one. But I will be reading Wild and Wrangled, which is Cam and Dusty's story, when it comes out next month in April. And then the last thing I read in January was Swimming Lessons by Lily Reinhart. This is just a collection of poetry. I never generally rate poetry higher than the 3 stars, just because I haven't really found anybody that's impacted me as much as Rupi Kaur has, and Rupi Kaur is a 5-star for me across the board. There have been a couple of other poetry books that I've read that I've given 4 stars, but this just fell a little short compared to those other ones. But I still did really enjoy the poetry in here, and I think if she does do more poetry, I'll definitely pick it up and read it, just to see if maybe it gets better as time goes on. And then moving on into February. Okay, and then in February I read The Wager. I started February off with The Wager by David Grann. This is a nonfiction book by him. I thought that this was going to be set in the Outer Banks, but it wasn't. It was set on like the coast of Chile. Maybe like the more southern tip of South America, but I think it was around Chile where it was set. I gave this a 3.75. I enjoyed it. If you're not like into what's called maritime history, so like ships, shipwrecks, those types of things, it might not be for you, but it still was really good. And it just didn't give me a 5-star feel because it was a little slow. But if you do like nonfiction and you do like maritime history, this is a good one to pick up and read. It wasn't too bad. It looks really thick, but it's really only like 250 pages. There's like maybe like 100 pages of like information and references at the end, so it's only 257 pages, which isn't too bad. And I did end up actually picking up the audiobook for this one and reading it on audio on my Spotify. And this was the first book that I've ever actually used an audiobook for, and I really enjoyed the audiobook format of it. It really helped to get me through the book and keep going, especially like when it was getting boring at parts and I just didn't want to read it anymore. But yeah, I gave this a 3.75. And then I read, not this one, I read Daydream first in February, because I was going to read Cleopatra and Frankenstein second, but I really wanted to get to this, and I gave this a 4.75. It definitely was better than Wildfire and Icebreaker. If you've seen my last video, well, 2 videos ago now, when I talked about like the popular books I've read, I didn't like Icebreaker as much. I just didn't like Anastasia as much as I thought I would. And then I actually ended up connecting more to the characters in Wildfire. So I think I gave Wildfire a 4.5. I think I gave it a 4.5, and I gave this a 4.75. It was so close to a 5-star, but it didn't give me that 5-star feeling. And I really wish it would have, because I haven't had a 5-star read yet this year, but I did really love Daydream. And I do recommend it. I liked it. I know there's some mixed reviews out there about it. And then I read, like I said, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. So I actually used the rest of my audio hours, because I had only had 3 hours on the wager that I used. I used the rest of my audio hours for Cleopatra and Frankenstein, and I ended up really enjoying this one. Oh, I have it upside down. Oh my gosh. I really ended up enjoying this one. I will say it's not a romance. I know sometimes it gets put as a romance, but it's more literary fiction, and it follows this couple meeting, and then it goes through like each month in a year and a half span after they meet and they get married. So they get married because the main girl, Cleo, is going to lose her student visa, and she wants to stay in the United States to pursue art. So she ends up marrying this guy, Frank, that she meets, who's twice her age. I think 20 years older than her, so almost twice her age, because she's 25 and he's roughly like 45, 50. And they end up getting married, and it goes through like what they go through and what happens in their relationship and their relationships with their friends and all of that kind of stuff. And I really liked how it ended. I think it was nice to see that, you know, not everything always works out in the end. So I liked that about this one, and I did give this a 4. And then so far in March, I have read The Fury by Alex Michaelides, which this came out last year. I enjoyed it. However, I do agree with, I think I gave this one a 4. Yeah, I gave this a 4. I gave both books so far in March 4. I, however, do agree with a lot of the reviews that I have seen about this book, where people are saying that, you know, it could have been wrapped up in 200 pages, 250 pages. It didn't need to be the 295, almost 300 pages that it was. I felt by like the second act, I think it was like page 166 that the second act ended on. I felt like what he did in the next like 100 pages, 100 plus pages, could have been wrapped up in another 40 to 50 pages. It didn't need an extra 100 pages, and it just kind of felt like after that mark, after the second act, when the third act started, that it just kind of drug out everything that was happening. And it was, I mean, I understand why he was giving so much background to what was going on so that you really understood everything that happened, but I just felt like it dragged on, and it probably could have been, all of that background could have been condensed into one more act leading up to what happened at the end. But I still did really enjoy it, and I will, I do want to go pick up The Maidens by him, and any other book that he has coming out, because I have read The Silent Patient already, and I loved The Silent Patient, and I do actually want to reread The Silent Patient to see if maybe my rating has changed on that or not. But yeah, that was The Fury. And then so far the last book that I have read in March is A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. This is a classic. This is a really short one. It's only 242 pages. I actually used the audiobook for this because I found that a lot of times with classics, it's kind of a little bit harder for me to comprehend like the writing and how they're writing. So it was helpful for me to sit down and listen to the audiobook for this, and I gave this a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. It was more like another character study with a subplot of romance. So it's about this girl, Lucy. She goes to Italy, she's on a trip, she meets this guy, and they kind of fall in love while they're there. And then she ends up going back to London, and some things happen in London, and the guy that she met in Italy ends up becoming a neighbor of hers, even though she's like this rich girl and he's not so rich. He's like low class. So they end up becoming neighbors, and then they kind of rekindle their romance. And I think by the end, they get back. I honestly don't know. I kind of forgot how it ended, but I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed reading about Italy and romance and all of that kind of stuff. So this is another good one if you like character study kind of with like a subplot of romance. And I think I already mentioned it, but I am reading Sunrise on the Reaping, so once I finish that, I will update you.
So I'm just sitting here. I just finished Sunrise on the Reaping. I will be in emotional turmoil for the next however long. I have not felt like this since Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home when I read it last year. So I'm gonna take a couple of days, gather my thoughts, and then once I have all of my thoughts gathered, I will come back and let you know my rating on Sunrise on the Reaping and how I felt about it.
Alright, so last time you saw me, I had just finished Sunrise on the Reaping, and I said I would come back in a couple of days to let you know my thoughts on it. It's been almost a week. It'll be a week this Wednesday since I've read it, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I have seen some mixed reviews where some people are saying that they weren't a fan, that it was just like his games and there wasn't a lot of backstory for him. But I think that I was one of those people that went into it knowing and thinking that it was going to be about his quarter quill games. So I did really enjoy it, and I thought that, you know, his games were enough backstory for why, what happened to his family, and to like the people in his life, why that stuff all happened and why it turned him into the person that he was. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I still don't know if I'm emotionally ready to get into another emotional book, so I might be holding off on A Little Life this month, for April, but we'll see. But yeah, that's my review on Sunrise on the Reaping. So those were all of the books that I've read from January to March of this year. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe.